As early as 1996, so only 2 years after Fairtrade had actually come into being in this country, as it were, as early as 1996, Reading Council passed a resolution which was moved by my friend Phil Starr to say that Reading Council should do everything in its power to act as a fair trade council and to support fair trade initiatives in the town. So we got off to a very early start on fair trade in Reading. And then, as the idea of fair trade towns came into being, we were very clear that that was something that we wanted to do for Reading also. And we began work to meet the necessary criteria to become a fair trade town. In those early days, the criteria were quite mathematical, and quite a lot of it was about actually going from shop to shop and cafe to cafe in Reading and checking what they had on their shelves. So people like Benta in particular were scouring around supermarkets and shops going 1, 2, 3. Yes, they've got the 4 products, okay, they count. And then we'd make our list of cafes and restaurants in Reading which met the fair trade criteria. And once we had enough of those, that was the big breakthrough point which enabled us to apply for fair trade town status. And that status was awarded to us in 2004 and then renewed on a number of occasions afterwards. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, things really started to change in terms of fair trade. Fair trade suddenly took huge steps forward, and we saw organisations like Cadbury's and Tate and Lyle, and then later even Kit Kat and Starbucks UK going over to fair trade, so that we reached a situation where it was almost impossible to be a food shop in Reading by 2010 without meeting the fair trade criteria. So we decided that it was time to adjust our criteria, and the Fair Trade Foundation did the same. So that really brought an end to the era of counting individual fair trade items on shelves, because even the least sympathetic supermarkets had stacks and stacks of fair trade stuff on their shelves by that time. So we responded to the new situation in 2 ways. We decided that what we would try to create in Reading, instead of just fair trade outlets, would be identified fair trade flagships. And these would be the places in Reading which not only stocked fair trade products, but actually actively promoted the fair trade ideal. So I think it's fair to say that in the 10-year period from 2004 to 2014, both Fair Trade and the Reading Fair Trade Group have moved forward really quite dramatically, from those pioneer years when fair trade produce was actually quite rare, to today, when we're working much more to make people think ethically about the way that they shop, rather than counting individual items on shelves. So tonight we've invited you all here to celebrate with us 10 years of fair trade in Reading. I'm very pleased to say that the Deputy Mayor of Reading, Councillor Tony Jones, has always been a supporter of this movement, is here this evening to say a few words and to introduce our special guests as well.
So welcome to everybody, welcome to our special guests, and I think I'll clear the floor and leave the rest of the time to you. So thank you for the invitation.
I stumbled on risk and looked at the notice board and thought, oh my goodness, it's all happening here. There's, peace choirs and salsa and talks about international solidarity, and I got involved and did the permaculture course and helped in the roof garden, and met a woman called Heather Gardner, who lived with her parents in Newbury at the time. And we got on fine, and we met quite a few times later. There was a Reading permaculture group we were part of. And then we kind of went our separate ways and did our own thing. But we both ended up with separate peace organisations in Palestine at the end of 2003. She with the International Solidarity Movement, and I was with the International Women's Peace Service, working with Palestinian farming communities, which is Palestine. Everyone in Palestine is a farmer, really. Every community is a farming community in some sense. And we were doing things like, checking the checkpoints to see that people were treated properly, which they mostly weren't, and documenting the lives, really, of the farmers and their families and what they were coming up against. And that year was a really good year for olives and olive oil. And what we learned was that the olive oil, which is absolutely beautiful, top quality, was being sold at below cost price to Israeli traders who blended it with other olive oil then. And this had happened really because the borders had been closed down during the Intifada, just previous to that, and the Palestinians had lost the Gulf markets and there had been no other international market for olive oil. So this beautiful product was going to waste, and we tasted it, you know, in various forms all the way through our stays there. So came back to the UK, and I was working for Caroline Lucas, who's now an MP, was then the MEP for the area. And we did a few stalls to attract attention to the issue of Palestine, and we used olive oil as a talking point to kind of draw people to the stall, and then we could find another way to talk about Palestine that wasn't just about charity and aid or terrorism. It was about the Palestinians as a people just like we are. And she had had the same idea as I had had, which was to bring more Palestinian olive oil in, to send emails out to people and say, would you like to pre-order a box of olive oil? So that's what we did. We just didn't think anything of it. We sent emails out to the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign and to friends of families, and the email went viral anyway, and before we knew it, we weren't talking about boxes of olive oil, we were talking about a shipping container load, and people were amazing. They sent us the money up front because we were absolutely broke. You know, we hadn't thought about how to finance it. People were sending us hundreds of pounds saying, I'll have a couple of boxes, you know, it just, whenever it comes, that's fine. And Heather and I were on the phone and said, we realised if we were going to bring in a shipping container of olive oil, we needed to actually start a company. We had no idea about business or companies or anything like that at the time. We got some forms from Companies House. I jumped on my mountain bike on a wet January day and had a glorious ride over the hills and arrived mud spattered and very happy into the Risk Cafe downstairs to meet Heather with the forms. And we signed the forms, and it was like, oh, what should we call our name? What should we call our company? You know, we have to give it a name. So we thought, and I said, we could just call it Zaytoun, which means olives. I was like, yeah, it's got a nice ring to it. Okay, let's call it Zaytoun. And that's it. We signed the forms in the corner of the cafe downstairs, sent the forms off, and I think March was our first container load of olive oil then. And it absolutely flew out. We bought more than was in demand, but all the surplus was sold within a month, I think. We take people out every year on a picking trip where they, customers and supporters live with the farmers for 2 weeks in the villages and go out picking every day. And the idea is that an international presence in the groves can help prevent the worst acts of intimidation and violence from the settlers, the Israeli settlers, the illegal settlers, who build their settlements, take land on top of the olive groves, on top of the hills, often pollute the water, build big fences, and will come into the groves to burn trees and intimidate Palestinian olive pickers. I think for us, fair trade is, yes, it's about a fair price and a fair wage and a sustainable living for Palestinian farmers, but right from the early days until now, when I and other people ask the farmers that we live and work with during those times, what is it that we can do for you? They say, okay, forget the charity, forget even the money, just tell our story, because we don't get our story told in the media out there. Just take it home, take the photos, take the stories, and tell people that we're just people like you, you know, we're just families like you at home. And for us, fair trade is a way of doing that. It's about people meeting people. It's not just about a product meets the money. It's about this community over here meets this community over there, shares food, shares a life, and understands each other.
Fair trade is about people, and the products are about the people and the heritage and the history. Olive oil, whether almonds or dates, are grown in situation of injustice, and for us, fair trade is the window in order to reach
people in other parts of the world and to communicate, to present our precious product that has been with passion, because we do have passion to our roots and to our groves, whether they are olives or palms or so on. Trade rather than aid. This is a strong message coming out from the farmers, that we do not want to keep relying on aid. We want to make a trade and to sustain our lives. Because our future should be a future with dignity. But the Israelis are trying in every way they can to prevent this. They are trying by the policies, the checkpoints, the closures, in every way they can, but we have got no other option. We are the people of the land who recognizes the right of the people of the land, whoever they are, with their different religions. That's why we insist on life, and we want to keep up of doing good things because we love the life. And we know that fair trade provides this. It is an elevator for justice, and we are part of it proudly, in order to also together make difference for ourselves or for other farming community wherever they are in the world. When we talk about the olive oil, simply, when we see some bottles being sold here or there, this definitely will mean for us that some families got milk to their children. A bag of dates means that some farmers have been able to market some products to get also milk and food to their families. In such situation of land confiscation, of water resources control, of settlement expansion, of uprooting of trees, 1.6 million have been uprooted of olive trees so far, just since 2003, when they have built the wall and they have looked the families behind, cut it from their resources, whether water or land. The journey of the olive oil bottle is a very long one. It goes more than 3 weeks to 1 month just within Palestine to the port, and it takes 10 days to reach here. Coming through checkpoints, terminals to the port. In the port, it's another misery. It is simply because they are trying to prevent the development of the economy, as the economy is the core of politics. They want us to be dependent on others, to stay weak, and to not build the nation, because marketing of the products that they are the only thing the Palestinian does, agriculture, having them being sold, this contribute to the national economy, starting from the household economy. Yes, fair trade is about justice, and it is a very good opportunity for us here or in other areas of the world to contribute to the global justice by buying these products, promoting them. It's just we are contributing to make better life for those marginalized people, simply whether they are in Palestine or in Africa or in Latin America. So fair trade sales and fair trade shopping is a direct contribution to the justice everywhere. Trade rather than aid, a future with dignity. These are the messages of the Palestinian farmer communities. Thank you so much.